The Dallas Mavericks just defied the odds in Game 7 against the Phoenix Suns and have now punched their ticket to the Western Conference Finals, who are set to face the Golden State Warriors on Wednesday. This team has fully come alive, beating what most people thought was the best team in the NBA in the Phoenix Suns, as this series to me was a coming out party to tell the rest of the NBA that the future is now for Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks, as he has officially emerged as the best player left in this year's playoffs. I will get into their matchup against the Warriors later in this video, but first we need to discuss the absolute domination that just happened. What they just did against the Phoenix Suns is honestly something I've never seen before in the NBA in any game ever, period. Not just any Mavs game, any NBA game, as they went on the road in Phoenix, where they haven't won a game there since 2019, beating the Suns, who were vastly considered to be the team that nobody was going to beat all season long, and the clear-cut favorites to win it all. But they didn't just beat them, they might have just created the most embarrassing playoffs loss that I've ever seen, as this has to be the worst Game 7 loss of all time, as at one point in this game, the Mavs were leading by 46 points. There is so much to take away from this game, as going into the game, the home team had won the Game 7 matchup 80% of the time, and to make matters even worse, the 33-point win was the second largest margin of victory in a Game 7 series clincher in NBA history, as Luka Doncic continued his narrative of being absolutely cold-blooded in elimination games in his career, as he's played in 4 elimination games, and he averages 38 points per game, 9.3 rebounds, 8.8 assists, 1.8 steals, and he shoots a ridiculous 53.4% from the field and 43.6% from 3, and to top it all off, he's a plus 34 in elimination games. And where the stakes are even higher, in Game 7s in Luka's career, he's played in 2 of them, and he averages 40.5 points in those 2 games, 8.5 rebounds, 9 assists, a steal, an absolutely incredible 59% from the field and 50% from 3, as there's only so much you can really say outside of these statistics about how good Luka Doncic really is, and he's clearly become, in my books at least, the best player in these playoffs left, and that right there will take you very far alone in the NBA playoffs, as this is where stars are made, and it's very clear Luka Doncic just cemented himself as a superstar in this league, even though he already was one to begin with. One last stat that I have to put out there before moving on to what Luka Doncic just did to the Phoenix Suns, to truly show not only how great Luka already is at such a young age, but just how much he dismantled the NBA's quote-unquote best team in the NBA. Over a 7-game series, Luka outscored the man who placed 4th in MVP voting in Devin Booker 218 to 164. He out-rebounded the 7-foot DeAndre Ayton 69 to 57, out-assisted Chris Paul, a man known as one of the best playmakers of all time, 49 to 40, and lastly, he had more steals than the runner-up defensive player of the year in Mikal Bridges at 15 to 9. Outside of Doncic, Spencer Dinwiddie finally arrived to the playoffs, having his first solid performance of this year's playoffs, scoring 30 points in 25 minutes, shooting 73.3% from the field, as this just opens up another dimension for this team outside of Brunson and Luka offensively, where if it does continue, this could make the next series hell for the Warriors, having another star outside of Luka that you have to worry about. This series made one thing clear to me, and it's that Luka solidified his spot of being a top 5 player in the NBA, on top of the skyrocketing confidence that he just seems to constantly climb higher and higher on what he can achieve, giving the Mavericks a serious shot at not only beating the Warriors in the conference finals, but also winning the NBA Finals this year. And now moving on to that matchup against the Golden State Warriors, I did make a video prior to the Suns-Mavs series where I correctly predicted how and why the Mavs were going to win that, and it received a lot of hate just regarding all the people that just didn't believe in the Mavs. And I honestly just felt like before I dive into this matchup, that was needed to be said to help you guys get some clarity into what happened before this series. This matchup between the Mavs and the Warriors is going to be incredibly similar to the Mavs playing the Suns in terms of the battle between the two teams, teams on how back and forth it may be, as there is no doubt that if the Warriors offense is clicking, they are nearly impossible to stop with all of the firepower that they have. Obviously, Steph and Clay being two seasoned vets with multiple championships under their belts. Poole is emerging as a star of his own, and all three of those guys can pop off and score 30 plus on any given night, giving their team a great chance to beat you. Draymond Green is also one of the best team defenders of all time. We all know how good Draymond is, being the point forward on this team who makes every single player on the Warriors better when he's on the floor. But for many reasons, I'm going to once again tell you why the Dallas Mavericks have a great shot to once again upset their opponents in the Golden State Warriors and make it to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2011. It all starts, of course, with Luka Doncic. In this series, in my opinion, there isn't anyone even close to having the defensive ability to match up with him. He just completely outplayed Mikal Bridges and the Suns, a team who I personally think were the best suited to have the best chance to lock down Luka. And yes, the Warriors do have Draymond, but I think it's highly unlikely Draymond starts off the series guarding him, especially considering the Warriors rely heavily on him being in the paint on their back line. This would leave Wiggins being the best option, in my opinion, as it would make a lot more sense. He is quicker and more athletic than Doncic, but even then, he isn't as bulky. And so far this season, during the 9 minutes Wiggins had to guard him, Luka scored 6 of his 8 shot attempts against him. The Warriors will throw all kinds of different matchups and packages at him to try to get the ball out of his hands, but obviously, like we saw last series, Doncic is way too good of a passer that he almost always finds his open teammate for the open three. And what makes things even worse is that even after the one-on-one matchup advantage that he already has against this team, the Warriors are tied for second worst in the NBA in terms of how often their isolation possessions resulted in an opponent's trip to the free throw line due to a shooting foul. So already it's looking like Doncic has a serious advantage on how he's going to be guarded this series. Dallas is a team that guarded Curry better than just about everyone this season. They limited him to shoot 29.4% from beyond the arc on 34 attempts during the regular season, which was the worst mark Curry had against any club he played more than twice. Reggie Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith limited Curry to shoot 26.6% from the field in just over 31 minutes of work defending him this season, and we saw just how good those two guys have been in the last series, which I only see carrying over into this one. This may shock you, but I think the Dallas Mavericks are also going to win the three-point battle in this series. And yes, this is the infamous Splash Brothers duo that we are talking about, who most recently added another sibling in Jordan Poole. But this Dallas defense does an excellent job at neutralizing opponents' threes, as they've done it better than just about anyone this past season, surrendering just under 11 triples per contest, which was the fewest in the NBA, and allowing just a 32.3% mark from outside, which was the third lowest rate. And like we saw in the first round of the playoffs, as the Suns aren't as good of a three-point shooting team, Dallas excelled against the NBA's first-ranked offense in the Jazz, as they did such a great job running them off the three-point line, which is something that was crucial into why they pulled away in that series. Dallas is also going to win the turnover battle in this one, as the Warriors have the second highest turnover total in the NBA, as well as the second highest turnover percentage, and this is matched up against Dallas, who has the third fewest turnovers and the 8th lowest turnover percentage in basketball. And so far this playoffs, the Mavericks have scored 224 points off their opponents' turnovers, which is 74 more than Dallas's opponents have scored off of their turnovers, and that differential is by far the highest out of the remaining teams in the playoffs. Once again, this is matched up against Golden State, who stands at a differential of minus 15 points off of their turnovers. And to wrap it all off, Jason Kidd has done a phenomenal job this playoffs, coming up with incredible game plans and even strategies against their opponents, as Booker was hunting down Doncic repeatedly at the beginning of their series, and this was a clear mismatch between the two teams. But then Kidd started to throw multiple bodies at him to speed him up and make him uncomfortable so that he would stop doing this. Obviously that worked, and on top of this, the Dallas Mavericks wore down a 37-year-old Chris Paul by attacking him constantly all game, which proved to do wonders in this series. And that just kind of shows you that they do have an incredibly talented coach who could help be the difference maker in this one. All of this allows me to believe that this series will have battles between the two clubs by just how good the Golden State Warriors are as a franchise and the level of stars that they have on their team. But I think the Dallas Mavericks have a great chance of coming away with this series, and dare I say, a better chance than they did against the Suns, as simply having a guy like Doncic on your roster who can do what he's done LeBron on any given night, no matter what, gives you a chance to win any given series that you're in. Let's see if the Warriors have what it takes to slow down Luka, and if the Mavs can knock off the potential dynasty rebuilding Warriors. This playoffs has shown us that the Dallas Mavericks are much better than people think. Let's see if they can keep it up.